Welcome back to another episode of ACR Convergence on Air, the official podcast of the American College of Rheumatology. I'm your host, Dr. John Hausman. We continue our coverage of ACR Convergence 2023, where we bring you episodes packed with groundbreaking science, brilliant ideas, and influential voices from this year's Convergence annual meeting. Today, we're exploring the year in review from an advocacy perspective. We've invited Dr. Christina Downey, who is the chair of ACR's Government Affairs Committee. She's giving a talk at Convergence entitled Advocacy, Year in Review, and Current Issues. We've invited her to discuss the issues that plague rheumatologists and what the ACR is doing to improve those issues. This includes drug pricing, workforce shortages, and burnout. She'll discuss the efforts that the ACR is currently doing for patients and for rheumatologists and discusses the issues that still need to be done in the coming year. Dr. Christina Downey is Associate Professor of Medicine and Rheumatology at Loma Linda University Health, where she's also the interim chief of the department. In addition to being certified as a rheumatologist, she's board certified by the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine and certified as a rheumatologist ultrasound operator. In addition to serving as the chair of the Government Affairs Committee as part of the ACR, she also serves as a young physician section representative to the American Medical Association. Locally, she's the program chair for the Southern California Rheumatology Society. Enjoy the show. Christina, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Or should I say, well, welcome back. You did such a great episode about empathy and wellness, episode 46. And maybe we can discuss some of those things in relation to the issues that we're going to be discussing today. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about where we are?
Yeah, we are at ACR 2023 in lovely, sunny San Diego.
Yeah, and this is the first episode we've done in a long, long time where we're actually face-to-face recording live at Convergence. So this is a great opportunity, and thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with us.
Absolutely. It's great to see faces not on Zoom.
I agree with you. So you have a session called Advocacy, Year in Review, and Current Issues. Can you share some of the highlights of that session for our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had our session this morning. It was very successful, talking with staffers Lenny and Amanda and myself about the Government Affairs Committee and the activities that we've been doing over the last year, advocating for all of our members and all of our patients.
Great. Can you discuss a couple of the issues that came up during those sessions?
Yes. So the Government Affairs Committee creates position policy statements for what we are going to focus our advocacy efforts on. And these revolve around the headaches that come with everyday life. Not knowing whether you're going to have research funding, not knowing if you're going to be able to recruit a rheumatologist to join your group because of workforce issues, having to spend 2 hours at the end of your day dealing with prior authorizations or calling patients back because of step therapy, they can't get the drug that you had initially discussed during your visit. And then the cherry on top for all of your hard work is that Medicare has cut reimbursement yet again.
Oh my goodness. So you guys, as part of the ACR, determine where the pain points are and where advocacy should put their efforts going forward. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So it's 100% member driven. We get feedback from members, and then we try to translate that into actionable items. So typically the actionable items are things where there are already legislative priorities going on in a current session. So it's hard to create change when there's not already a bill. And the ACR previously have worked with legislators to draft bills to introduce them to the House and the Senate to try to get our issues in front of lawmakers. but it's a whole lot easier if there's already movement in Congress.
Interesting. Okay.
So you can imagine with all of the talk about drug pricing that's been happening over these last few months to years, that a lot of the things that we've been able to be successful with revolve around drug pricing.
Okay. Tell me more about, some of the issues about drug pricing and what the ACR is doing as a result.
Drug pricing is very murky in America. We are unable to go to the pharmacy and say, I want the cheapest TNF alpha inhibitor, please, and then pay cash for it and walk away. So the medications that you have access to are determined by pharmacy benefit managers who act as middlemen with pharmacies, with insurance companies, with the pharmaceutical companies themselves. And so it's all kind of behind closed doors. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And what we're seeing is that despite biologics being introduced to the market, it's not actually translating into a decrease in costs for anyone, for the health plan, for the consumer. And one of the reasons for that is because pharmacy benefit managers act as this third party, and they skim a little off the top with every interaction that that drug has in the system. So one thing that the ACR has been very vocal about with Congress and in the regulatory space as well is trying to shine a light on those practices and just see what's going on so that we can understand why they are making so much money while our patients continue to pay higher premiums and higher out-of-pocket costs.
My goodness. Yeah. I still don't understand why we need pharmacy benefit managers to get in the middle and, as you say, skim a little bit off the top. And that only translates to increased prices for insurance company, for patients. It certainly doesn't make the world a better place. So what is the ACR doing? You mentioned that they're trying to highlight some of the challenges and trying to bring light to that process of pharmacy benefit managers.
Yes. As you can imagine, the rheumatologists are not the only groups that are upset with pharmacy benefit managers and asking for more transparency in that space. So fortunately, we are able to work with coalitions to amplify our message.
Okay.
We've been able to sign on to letters with other groups such as the Step Therapy Coalition, the AMA House of Delegates, the GME Advocacy Coalition. The list goes on and on and on. And so the louder all of our voices are combined, the more likely it is that Congress will pay attention. So there is legislation that has some language calling for some transparency with the practices of PBMs that are in an appropriations bill that may or may not pass. You never know what's happening in Washington, D.C. these days, so we'll all have to keep posted.
Okay, fantastic. So in addition to drug pricing, what are some of the other efforts that the Government Affairs Committee has identified that the ACR is trying to address?
A big one is workforce shortages.
Tell me more.
Yeah, so we've attacked it from many different angles. One of the wins that I'm particularly proud of is getting funding for the pediatric subspecialty repayment loan program. The loan repayment program has been around for quite some time, but it's never actually been funded. So if you have a loan repayment program, but there isn't any money to repay loans, what are you doing?
Not much of a program.
Right. So finally that's funded. And we are highly encouraging all pediatric rheumatologists who need it to apply for this funding, because Congress will be looking at who is applying for these funds in order to determine how to allocate funds going forward.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So tell all your pediatric rheumatology friends, all one of them probably, to apply.
Okay, great. So we've discussed in this podcast about the huge shortage of both pediatric and adult rheumatologists throughout the country. So it's great that the ACR has certainly identified that as something that they need to take on and address. Other issues that you guys reviewed in the year in review.
We discussed research funding as well. So in the 118th Congress, we've been successful at advocating for increased funding through NIAMS, NIH, and through the CDC Arthritis Research Program. For several years, we had been asking for a line item specifically to study arthritis in the DoD research funding. And this is important because things like breast cancer and any number of diseases that are all equally worthy have a line item, but there was nothing protected for arthritis research.
Wow.
And outside of active duty injuries, arthritis is one of the leading causes of why active duty members are no longer active duty.
Huh.
So there's a direct line there, and we were very proud that we were able to have that line be made in the eyes of our lawmakers and our appropriators, and we have funding for our researchers.
Amazing. And, it for some of these things, it makes you wonder why it took so long to get that there. For instance, arthritis is certainly one of the most common causes of disability, in the US and worldwide. So I'm glad that the ACR was able to help with that. Any other issues that you want to discuss about, things that the ACR is doing in terms of advocacy?
I think it's important that we all know that Medicare reimbursement, the cuts, are probably on a lot of people's mind right now. We just got the ruling that there has been yet another cut to the conversion factor that Medicare reimburses us all for our services. And so this is something that is untenable. It cannot continue. The rising costs of operating a practice are not being zeroed out by the decrease in reimbursement that we're getting.
Yeah.
The math just doesn't work.
Makes no sense, especially with inflation, right? As we've seen over the last couple of years, inflation's going up, everything, all the costs are going up, and now reimbursements are going down. It makes no sense. I wonder who's making these decisions.
So we have been keeping an eye on this, and Amanda on our regulatory team is amazing, and she is ready to respond. She's using all of our voices to explain how untenable this is, and we need to find a better way. One of the things that the ACR has been advocating for is to tie physician reimbursement to inflation, to at least have some sort of objective measurement that we could look at and say, the conversion factor is X because of Y, rather than just a number that it's seemingly pulled out of thin air. So we are responding to that. We are working on trying to convey how detrimental this is. But there was some success that I would like to highlight. The G2211 code is set to go live January 2024, so we can all look forward to that.
What is that?
So that's a complex care code. So this describes the inherent complexity that it takes to care for patients with chronic conditions. So you tie this onto your E&M codes. When you bill a level 4, level 5, you also do this G code. It comes out to about $16 per patient, but it tries to compensate a little bit for all those telephone calls that you get, the prior authorizations that you have to do, the in-basket messages from your patient that come to you at all hours for any reason.
Yeah, it's funny. Those so they did a study at my hospital about in-basket messages, and it turns out that rheumatology has twice as many in-basket messages as any other specialty. So, that point about that our patients are complex, that they require a lot of, blood work monitoring and imaging studies, and it takes a lot to take care of our patients. And I'm glad at least that it's being recognized and reimbursed more appropriately than it was before.
It's a good start.
Yeah. So, Christina, last time we chatted with you was episode 46, which was about empathy and wellness. And I wonder how, you think empathy and wellness ties with some of the things that you're doing now as the chair of the Government Affairs Committee.
I think there's a direct correlation. For me, I am driven by knowing that I am trying to make a difference, that I am not just accepting the fate that was given to me, but I am at least lending whatever sort of capital I have to making changes that can help improve not only my professional life, but my colleagues' professional life. And that trickles down to our patients, that trickles down to our learners, to our communities, to our families. So we don't have an updated rheumatology workforce study. The last one was done in 2015, but anecdotally, when I look around me, I see people leaving the profession.
Yep.
I see people stepping back from taking care of patients. And, I know that everyone doesn't like talking about burnout. So I'll call it a decrease in physician wellness and satisfaction. We love taking care of our patients, but it's so hard. It's so hard. And all of the things that I've talked about up till this point makes it really difficult emotionally to continue to, it feels like a Sisyphean task sometimes trying to get all of these things done. So having a seat at the table, having a constructive outlet for some of the frustration that you have has been critical to my personal wellness and trying to maintain the personal satisfaction that I get from doing my work. And it just fills my cup every time I'm able to engage and know that I am at least trying to make a difference. And it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. I don't expect one letter to make a huge difference, but in the, however many years that I've been doing this, I have seen a lot of change, and I know that I'll continue to see a lot of change.
That's great. Yeah, I think for burnout, the idea of having a purpose, right? Having something to work towards bigger than yourself often helps to prevent some of that burnout. So, if you get out of clinic and you're part of this bigger group that's doing, efforts for making the practice of rheumatology better, to improve patient care, certainly that can provide a lot of satisfaction and fuel, to allow you to, see patients day after day.
It's also helpful to be able to tell my patients, they get very frustrated as well. Why is that? Why do I have to have this drug and not that drug? We already talked about that other drug. And I tell them, I educate them about the issues. I advise them to talk to their representatives. I invite them to get involved along with me, and I let them know that I'm doing everything that I can, both inside and outside the clinic, to take care of them.
I'm sure your patients really, appreciate hearing that from you, because I agree with you. Many of our patients get very upset with us that, why hasn't their medication been approved yet? Why is it that they have to, fail 3 months of this medicine in order to get this other medicine? Even if we don't think it's going to be effective. So I hear the frustration, and I'm glad that you and the rest of the Government Affairs Committee and ACR and all the advocacy efforts are trying to do something about it. So what are some sort of going forward to 2024 and beyond? What are some of the issues that you envision that are or will become important in the future?
I think it's going to be a lot of the same, because we still have so much work to do in the spaces where we're in. We'll continue to use the health policy statements that are written by members to guide our actions and the way that we steer the ship. But I think that with the price negotiations that are newly happening for the first time within Medicare, we're going to see what that's going to do to accessibility to drugs for our patients. On the state level, there are a lot of exciting things happening with step therapy reform, prior authorization bills. So a lot can be done at the level of the state as well as the federal level. So I think that we'll see a lot more happening on the state levels. And I think that we're going to see a lot of physician groups being very vocal about Medicare reimbursement and systemic change.
Great. And for listeners out there that find that these issues are important, whether they're patients, rheumatologists, allied health professionals, how can they get involved in helping, the ACR and advance some of these efforts?
Every little bit counts. So whether you have the time to fly to Washington, D.C. and pound the pavement with us, we'd love to have you.
Is that for, what is it, the Advocacy drop-in day?
Yeah, so there are 2 fly-ins,
Yeah.
One in May and one in September.
Okay.
And we bring patients with us to the Hill, and we go around to our representatives' offices and we educate them about rheumatology and the issues that uniquely affect our patients and ourselves. So those are open to ACR members. You can go to rheumatology.org to get more information about that. There's a whole advocacy page where you can sign up to be a first contact. You can be an expert on whatever it is that you're an expert on, so that when the ACR staff need content experts to write letters to Congress or CMS or FDA or whatever it is, they can go to you and say, hey, tell me about this biosimilar. You know, how can I represent this issue well? You can be one of those experts. You can X or tweet about issues and trying to elevate the presence that we have online. You get an ACR at Work newsletter if you're an ACR member. So before you delete it, read it and see if there's anything there that you're particularly passionate about and can lend an ear to. You can write op-ed letters. I mean, I could just go on and on and on, but I would start by going to rheumatology.org and getting over to the advocacy section and seeing what fires you up.
Fantastic. And we'll have links to that also from the ACR On Air website. So we still have a couple more days in San Diego. Anything else that you're looking forward to for the rest of the meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am an investor in RoomPack, and I hope that everybody listening is also an investor in RoomPack. And so I'm excited to go to the donor-only casino night that's happening tomorrow evening. So there's also the RoomPack Lounge. I went by and got some pretty cool sunglasses. I just broke mine, so it's very fortuitous. But if you are a donor to RoomPack, you also have access to that. And there's going to be a happy hour today at 4 p.m. on the veranda out in the sunshine. So make your donation, get over to the RoomPack Lounge, and I'll see you there.
Fantastic. Christina, thank you so much for your time. This has been really wonderful. Thanks for all the work that you've done as the chair of the Government Affairs Committee, and all for your advocacy in trying to make the practice of rheumatology better, and also, make it better for our patients.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure, and it's a team effort, and so the whole team I'm truly thankful for.
Well, there you have it. Drug pricing, workforce shortages, lower Medicare reimbursements, all issues that can either contribute to burnout or can fuel you to fight for change. Don't forget to tune in to ACR Convergence on Air every morning this week for a rendezvous with innovation, inspiration, and invaluable insights. Thank you all for listening, downloading, subscribing to our show, and for rating us with 5 stars or however many stars you think we deserve. You can find our show notes for this episode at acronair.org, on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, let's keep advocating for our patients and for our profession. And of course, stay healthy.